Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah, and I'm a 28-year-old interior designer. What I'm about to share is how my mother-in-law's generosity spiraled into a nightmare. Life was good before the drama started. My husband, Charles, and I lived in a cozy apartment in Seattle. Nothing fancy, but it was home. We were saving up for our dream house while I built my interior design business, and Charles taught history at the local high school. We were just your average couple. Then I found out I was pregnant. "Babe, you look really pale. Maybe we should get you checked out," Charles said one morning as I hovered over the toilet bowl for the third time. Morning sickness hit me like a truck, far worse than normal. After multiple ER visits and specialized treatments, the medical bills began piling up. That's when Camilla, my mother-in-law, swooped in. "Hannah, darling, let me handle the medical expenses. No daughter-in-law of mine should worry about money during pregnancy," she said sweetly. My best friend, Mandy, a lawyer, pulled me aside later. "Something feels off about this no-strings-attached offer. It's Charles's mom. What could go wrong?" I replied, completely naive. At first, Camilla's help seemed harmless, generous, even. But soon, she started showing up everywhere. My doctor's appointments, our apartment, and even meetings with my clients. "Just checking on my investment," she'd say with a smile laced with condescension. "Have you considered switching to Dr. Peterson? He's much more experienced," she suggested during dinner at her mansion. "I've already talked to him about taking you on as a patient." "You did what?" I choked on my water. "Mother, we're happy with our current doctor," Charles interjected. "Sweetheart, I'm only thinking of the baby. After all, I'm the one paying for everything." That's when things started unraveling. Her assistant, Daisy, began conveniently bumping into me at cafes and yoga classes. I later discovered she was reporting my every move back to Camilla. "Hannah, you should really eat more protein," Camilla texted me minutes after I ordered a salad. The controlling behavior intensified. At a family barbecue, Brandon, Charles's childhood friend who worked for Camilla's real estate company, pulled me aside. "Watch yourself," he whispered. "I've seen her do this before. The medical bills are just the beginning." I should have listened to him and Mandy. But between severe morning sickness and trying to keep my business afloat, I missed the red flags waving right in front of me. One morning, when I refused to switch doctors, Camilla made her move. "I just got off the phone with the hospital billing department," she said casually, stirring her tea. "It'd be a shame if there were delays in processing those payments." "Are you threatening me?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Oh, darling, I'm just reminding you who's keeping you out of medical debt." Charles tried standing up for me, but Camilla knew how to manipulate him. "I'm only looking out for your family's best interests, sweetheart. Hannah seems so unstable lately." That word, unstable, started popping up everywhere, at charity events, garden parties, and even at Charles's school functions. Camilla had been busy spreading rumors. One day, Brandon caught me crying in a parking lot. "She's got Daisy tracking your every move, credit card purchases, appointments, everything," he said, showing me screenshots of reports on his phone. My entire life had become a surveillance operation. Then came the final blow. At dinner one night, Camilla announced, "I've prepared a suite in my mansion. The stress of maintaining an apartment isn't good for the baby. I've already started moving your things." "You did what?" I snapped. Charles finally pushed back. "Mother, you can't just..." "Can't what?" "Protect my grandchild? Hannah clearly needs supervision. Her erratic behavior, missing appointments." "I haven't missed any appointments." "That's not what your doctor told me." My blood ran cold. "You've been talking to my doctors?" "Of course. As the person paying for your care, it's my responsibility." That night, I stormed out of her mansion, but not before grabbing a stack of unopened mail from her desk. Later, I discovered letters from my doctor's office that Camilla had been intercepting. "Charles, look at these postmarks. She's been stealing our mail." He looked torn. Maybe she thought she was helping. Helping? "She's trying to control everything, our home, my medical care, my life." Brandon showed up with more evidence. "Your mother's done this before. Remember Carlos's wife? How she suddenly seemed unstable during her pregnancies?" This was just the beginning of Camilla's twisted game. I knew I had to fight back. Charles's face went pale. She left him? No, Brandon corrected grimly. Your mother drove her away. And now she's doing it again. How could she do this? I whispered, my voice trembling. Brandon's expression was grave. She's done it before. Her sister-in-law, Jenna. Camilla sabotaged every career opportunity Jenna's husband had until they had no choice but to move in with her. They divorced 6 months later. I felt the room spinning. This wasn't meddling, this was sabotage. I called Mandy immediately. She showed up with a legal pad and began documenting everything: the stolen mail, the medical privacy violations, and the interference in Charles's career. Look at this, Mandy said, pulling up court records on her laptop. She's already consulting with lawyers about grandparents' rights. She's building a case to claim you're an unfit mother. I felt sick. She wants to take my babies? Mandy's jaw tightened. She's playing a long game, Hannah, but this just became a legal battle. We need to act fast. Before we could process everything, Camilla invited us to a special family dinner. I knew something was coming, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened that night. Over dessert, Camilla dropped the bombshell. I've arranged for a psychiatric evaluation, she announced smoothly, sipping her wine. Hannah is clearly not in her right mind. Charles shot up from his chair. Mother, stop this. Camilla's eyes glinted with icy determination. Charles, look at her, paranoid, emotional, making wild accusations. She needs help. Because they're true, I shouted, my chair scraping against the floor as I stood. You stole my mail. You interfered with Charles's career. What else have you done? Sit down, Camilla hissed, her sweet facade crumbling. Remember who's paying your medical bills, Hannah. One call, and you'll lose everything. No one will believe a crazy, hormonal, pregnant woman over me. I'll make sure of it. We stormed out, ignoring her threats. Charles's face went pale. For the first time, he truly saw his mother for who she was. That night, we packed our bags while Camilla screamed from the doorway. You ungrateful little. You'll regret this, she shouted as we walked out. She made good on her threats the very next day. Charles's principal called him into the office, saying a complaint had been filed claiming he was emotionally unstable and unfit to teach. It was an anonymous tip, but Brandon later confirmed the email came from Daisy's account. The stress was unbearable. That afternoon, I started having contractions, 10 weeks early. As they rushed me to the hospital, Camilla appeared, her face a mask of calm authority. I'm her mother-in-law, she told the staff. She's not mentally competent to make medical decisions. Thank God Mandy was there. She stepped in immediately. Step back, or I'll have security remove you, she said coldly, her legal badge practically radiating authority. The doctors managed to stop the contractions, but I was placed on bed rest and hooked up to monitors. As I lay in the hospital room, exhausted and terrified, Charles sat beside me, holding my hand. I'm so sorry, he whispered, tears in his eyes. I should have seen it sooner, but I promise, she's not going to hurt us anymore. What we didn't know then was that Camilla's empire was about to collapse, and we had front row seats to her downfall. 2 days later, Brandon visited me in the hospital, carrying a thick folder. He set it down on the tray beside my bed, his face grim. You need to see this, he said, flipping it open. She's been cooking the books for years. Fake property sales, hidden accounts. Everything. It's all in here. Mandy's jaw dropped as she sifted through the papers. This isn't just unethical, it's criminal. The IRS would have a field day with this. That evening, Charles and I decided it was time to confront her once and for all. We drove to her mansion and found her in her office, frantically shredding documents. Why? I demanded, stepping into the room. Why did you do all this? She spun around, her perfectly composed mask cracking. Everything I did was to keep this family together, she snapped. You were taking my son away from me? No, Mother, Charles said, stepping forward. You were losing control, and you couldn't handle it. Control, she hissed, her voice rising. I built this empire from nothing. I know what's best for this family. You're just like your father, weak, easily manipulated by a gold-digging. Stop. Charles slammed his hand on her desk, his voice thunderous. Dad didn't leave because he was weak. He left because of you. Your manipulation, your lies, your need to control everything. Camilla's face contorted with fury. I made you who you are. Everything you have is because of me. No, I said, my voice steady. Everything we have is despite you. You try to destroy us just to keep us dependent on you. But we're done letting you control our lives. The next morning, Daisy walked into my hospital room, pale and trembling. I can't do this anymore, she said, her voice cracking. She made me forge your signature on medical release forms. I kept copies and recordings. Camilla's been planning to declare you incompetent since she found out you were pregnant. That was the last straw. We filed the harassment lawsuit that very day. Camilla's response? She called a press conference, painting herself as the victim, a concerned grandmother persecuted by her mentally ill daughter-in-law. But that same afternoon, everything unraveled. The IRS showed up at her office with a search warrant. Thanks to Brandon's evidence, local news crews caught her on camera, desperately trying to shred documents. Breaking news: prominent real estate mogul Camilla Sterling under investigation for tax fraud and embezzlement. As the news played on TV, my water broke. 8 hours later, our daughter, Eliza, entered the world, perfect, healthy, and oblivious to the chaos surrounding her birth. Charles cut the cord while Mandy and Brandon cheered from the waiting room. Camilla made one last desperate attempt, trying to force her way into the maternity ward. You can't keep my grandchild from me. Everything I did was for this family, she screamed as hospital security escorted her out, straight into the arms of waiting federal agents. The aftermath was both cathartic and chaotic. The DA's office uncovered decades of fraud as more victims came forward, former business partners, employees, and even other daughters-in-law. Camilla's carefully constructed empire crumbled. She was found guilty on all counts. The judge delivered a harsh sentence, 15 years for financial crimes, with additional time added for medical privacy violations and harassment. Meanwhile, our lives finally began to heal. Charles was offered a principal position at Brighton Prep, this time without any interference from his mother. We used part of the settlement from the harassment lawsuit to purchase our dream home. My interior design business thrived after the story went public as people rallied around someone who stood up to a bully. Last week, I noticed her mansion listed for sale, her assets seized by the federal government. Charles and I drove past it together, with Eliza babbling in her car seat. Do you think she's learned anything? Charles asked as we passed the empty gates. Probably not, I replied. But we sure did. Eliza giggled in the back seat, her laughter filling the car. She will never know her grandmother's toxic love. Instead, she'll grow up knowing that her parents stood up to a bully and won. Sometimes, justice needs a little push, and sometimes the best revenge is living well while watching your oppressor lose everything they once used to control you. The end of Camilla's reign was just the beginning of our freedom. Still, I wrestle with questions about everything that happened. If your mother-in-law were secretly sabotaging your spouse's career to trap you in financial dependence, would you protect your spouse from the painful truth about their mother, or would you believe they deserve to know everything, even if it shattered their world and the foundation of their childhood? Did I do the right thing by exposing everything at once? Should I have taken a gentler approach? Was I wrong to gather evidence before confronting her? What if the stress had caused worse complications during my pregnancy? These questions linger, but one thing remains clear. We broke free. For that, I'll always be grateful.